Sweet surrender as I love, serve, and remember.
When we have great music. Speak your truth. Doesn't that feel empowering? Not somebody else's truth, not what you read in a book. Even the absolute truth, it's truth, but it's not truth until you speak it as you. Your own way of describing and expressing, speaking your truth. The important part of speaking our truth, of course, is being heard too. And who's the first person who needs to hear us? Right, ourselves. So when you're speaking your truth over these, discovering and expressing your beautiful, radiant selves, the most important thing is, are you listening to what you're saying, what your truth is saying? Because that's what's going to impact your life. So the talk title this morning is Speak Your Truth. But really what to talk is, it's going to be a little longer today. If you have somewhere to go, it's okay. Because next week it's going to be very short and simple. So today I really see myself as bringing everything sort of full round to a closure and then next week we just do a celebration. Speaking your truth. So what you might not know is that there's three faces of God. Who knows there's three faces of God? Few of you. Great. So, multidimensionally, there's probably 1 million faces of God, but humanly, we tend to look at God from three different perspectives, and here's the key: all of them are important, none of them should be left out, and all of what it is how we relate to the thing that we call God, or divine presence, or divine love, or whatever, however your words are, the presence. The first face is the third face of God, which is when we're talking about God. So that's when we're saying, oh my gosh, this divine presence is everywhere present. It is unconditional love all the time. It is birthless. It is deathless. It never changes. It's right where you are. You cannot add on to that love. You cannot take away that love. No matter what is going on in your life, you are love, you are love, you are love. And we speak about God from that very expanded absolute truth place. And when we speak from that place, even when we speak it, we can start to feel ourselves expand and open, because the wonderful thing about speaking about this divine presence in the third person is of the three faces, it's the most impersonal. And so as you're talking about what truth is, you're freeing yourself from any personal connection, preferences, and just opening up to what is. And being in what is so empowering and freeing. The second face is God, is where God is something that we talk with. It's my relative self talking to my absolute self. It's my small self talking to the divine in whatever form. As we heard in the reading, there's many forms, and it will show up for us in a way that works for us. And there's a dialogue of speaking and listening. Remember the Mother Teresa quote I used a few weeks ago, which is, someone asked Mother Teresa how she prays, and she says, I listen. And then they said, well, what does God say to you? And God says, He's listening to me. There's a lot of listening going on as well as speaking, and that's sometimes the part we forget about. A conversation with God isn't just about talking over each other, ourselves and the divine, but listening, a lot of space for listening. That's the second face of God. It's an intimate communion. And then the first face of God is the I am. And that's where we stand in the truth of the I am. And this is a little bit different than the third person, because it's now embodied as me. It's not just an isness that is impersonal, but it becomes both the infinite, which is everything, and yet there's a personal feeling tone for it. And for those of you who've been in New Thought for a long time, most of our affirmations are centered in I am. I am the way, the truth, and the light is not about an individual, it's about this absolute truth. The the burning bush reveals to Moses, I am that I am. Ramana Maharshi said, I am, and he said the greatest expression of truth was that burning bush to Moses, I am that I am. And that's the idea that everywhere we go is this very personal I am that is infinite and untouched. There's no separation. There's only the I am. And that's really what we would call, well, they all can have the only challenge with the I am that I have found is that sometimes we forget to distinguish if I'm talking about the infinite I am or the I am of my own human experience. And so just that's a little bit of a criticism that people have had with New Thought, which is sometimes when I'm saying I am God and I'm speaking as Harriet, my small self, there can be a little sense of like, that makes me a little uncomfortable. So we want to be very clear when we're talking about the I am, we're not talking about just my own, it includes our individuality, but the I amness transcends any one human being. So those are the three faces of God. The practice I'm going to talk about today, we're talking about living your declaration, your absolute ideals, your truth. We during the Declaration of Independence, how I was commenting on how Simon Sinek was saying we celebrate the declaration and not it hadn't happened yet. We still weren't free from Britain. It was 7 more years before we won the American Revolution, but we don't celebrate the completion, we celebrate the declaration. And what we know is the Revolutionary War did not complete the Declaration of Independence. We're still working on fulfilling that very high ideal. And so in our own life, what are the highest ideals that we will be spending the rest of our life fulfilling? Because they're the highest, most absolute terms, and we're still human beings. And so what is that? How can saints who do amazing miracles all the time say, I'm not even close? Because they're connecting with something so much greater than what we are humanly. What are your highest spiritual ideals? And then I've been talking about practices to anchor those ideals. So the first week I was talking about meditation and prayer. Again, a lot of listening, a lot of stillness. The highest form of prayer is stillness. Meditation and prayer. Last week I was talking about energy. And you're doing exercise as a form of energy, and there's all types of different exercises, as we know, Qigong or Tai Chi or Reiki, or just any exercise. They were saying that they did a study between people who did yoga and weightlifting, and they were both reaching the states, because it's that physical focus that starts moving us into our energy body. So that's a practice. And then this week, what I'm talking about in speaking your truth is the practice of journaling. How many of you are not surprised? So, hi folks online, I know many of you aren't surprised either. So journaling is about finding our voice. How are we going to find our voice if we're not actually speaking our truth? And we don't always have to find someone to speak our truth to, a therapist or a practitioner. We can find our voice by articulating, and how we do that is different. You could do it on a tape recorder, or tape yourself, but it's good to hear yourself. I like writing. I'm not a writer, but I love writing. I'm not writing for books and stuff. So my journaling practice. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my journey of speaking, learning to speak my truth, and how it all shows up today. So for me, speaking my truth, journaling has been really powerful. I've been writing in journals since about 8th grade. It really went through a big shift when in 1990, I had decided I don't want to live my life by my desires. I want to live by God's desires. So I was listening, spent about a month being in stillness, listening, total light, very clear. I had been to a One New Thought church in Arcadia, California. I was living in Arlington, Virginia at the time, so I contacted the minister there and said, I really feel called to follow this New Thought path. I'm thinking about moving out there. What do you think? He had no idea who I was. And so he sent me 3 practices to do for 30 days. And I don't remember one of them. The other one was doing affirmations, looking in the mirror. And then the third one was the one that had a huge impact on me, and it was journaling. He said, just pretend, don't worry if you are, or you're not, but just pretend that you are God. And for 30 days, I want you to write about you, not to you, but about you in the third person for 30 days. Now, I'm someone who had done therapy. I've been writing my feelings for years. To suddenly shift and say, okay, try to be with how is God talking about my day today. Totally changed. The expansiveness, the contraction, just opening up, the things that felt a little bit stuck. Third person is a wonderful way just to get stuck energy out, because a lot of times stuck energy comes from attachment or resistance. You're and it opens things up. And it was so profound that I didn't stop it. I ended up moving out there, but I didn't stop writing in the third person. And as my journaling evolved, then I was doing the artist way, which was the morning pages. So then I would wake up in the morning and I'd do 3 pages of the morning pages, which is just stream of conscious. You're writing, you don't lift your pen. So that's the I. I'm just and it's all from my perspective. And then that night I would write from God's perspective about me, which was the impersonal. It was awesome. But that evolved into dialogue, where suddenly I started shifting and saying, I want to have a conversation. Instead of just talking to air as I'm stream of conscious, I want to talk to this divine presence that is talking about me. So instead of having our 2 separate worlds, it started coming together. And these conversations started to unfold in my journaling practice. There's something I want to note here. This was over years. I didn't just do a few months here and a few months there. And I just want us to highlight, as you're speaking your truth, finding your own journey, and you all already are doing it, but this is for the rest of our life, right? If you have a high ideal, declaration, vision, whatever you want to call it, guiding you that you're going to do for the rest of your life, these practices you have years to do it. You don't have to find the right way. There's a right way you might do it for a certain, and I didn't have any preordained plan. They would evolve. It evolves naturally. So it evolved into this conversation that was transformative for me, and it still has become the practice that I do every day. And I do the practice because it's wildly creative in terms of, I'm shocked. When we say God's infinite, I experience that in journaling. I've been journaling now for decades. I am shocked how many times in a journaling session I will have a complete whoa, no way. And I'm how can I still be having these experiences? I've been writing about, I'm doing a lot of the same stuff for decades now. Blows my mind. Often it will be, I present something to the divine presence, and then I'm very clear there's no answer to it. It's just way too big and too complicated. So I just let it go, because I know I have nothing to say, and if I have nothing to say, God clearly has nothing to say, because I'm God, right? But I get a little, there can't be an answer, so I just let it go, and then I go, well, what do you want me to know? I can't tell you how many times this has happened. That presence starts asking me questions that has nothing to do with what I just talked about. Totally cool with that, because I know there's no answer to that, so that seems right to me. So I'm just answering the questions. And I write for several pages. I don't just write a paragraph. So I'll just start answering the questions, and I'll answer the questions, and then suddenly, holy smokes, I get to the answer that I just thought was completely impossible to answer. There is a divine presence guiding me on this journey. That's one incredible way that feeds me. Why would I not want to journal? When people feel like it has to be a discipline, for me, it's I can't think of anything more fun. It's so fun, and it's also so healing. And I've talked about this before. All of this I'm just touching on, I'm not going into a lot of depth, is when you're in pain, when I'm in pain, because I know this presence loves me unconditionally, and I know that I know that I know that, I have no trouble pouring myself out, my pain out, saying the worst qualities about myself, feeling it as I'm writing it, feeling and it could be, I want to say both things, because someone said something to me that made me stop. They said, well, I know you have esteem issues, Harriet. And I had to stop. I'm thinking, do I? And I thought, oh, it's because I talk about writing about feeling unworthy. I'll pour out. But I also, this is even harder for me to admit, but I'm admitting it for anyone who might resonate with this. I also have feelings of superiority. Just so we're clear, I'm well balanced. There are places where I think I'm much further along, and like, what's the... So, and then I have to surrender that, the arrogance of thinking, whatever. So it's both and, just so we're clear. But I prefer talking about the bad stuff than the good stuff. I'm more embarrassed about the good, thinking I'm superior. So whatever it is, I know it's a relative truth, and I have to be honest about it, and that's the key. That's what speaking your truth is about. Because even as many times as I've done this for years, I often realize if I'm constantly going at an issue and it's not being transformed, I'm still hiding something from myself. There's something still I'm really not willing to say, and I'm not even letting it come to the forefront of my mind because I don't really want to look at it. And so it's not like, oh, I'm not going to talk about that. I'm just writing about all this over here and pretending that's not there. Just keep writing. But if the same issue's coming and it's not transforming, that means there's something I'm not facing in myself. There's not something I'm willing to admit to myself. Because speaking our truth is, as so many teachers say, God knows everything about us. It's not like we're tricking the divine presence, this infinite love intelligence that knows everything. We're tricking ourselves. And so what it forces me to do over time, if I keep seeing the same thing, oh, there's something in myself I'm not facing, I have to face it. I have to look at it. And in doing so, the response that comes back to me is always extraordinary and transformative. Healing. And I might have that healing one time, close my journal, and by the next day, I'm right back to where I started again. Got to go through it again. And so I'll need that healing. People say, should we do a treatment or a prayer treatment more than one time? Yeah, if it's not sticking. Remember, we're on this eternal journey. It's not like, if we could just fix everything and it's done, first of all, I'd be bored. And it belies that this is an infinite universe. We don't really know. There's so much more. And so if I'm returning to something, that's soul work. We have spirit work and we have soul work, and it's going deeper and deeper. There's things that I just have to grasp, or it takes time to grasp. You can't, or I can't, I can't grasp everything all at once. I have to keep getting it over and over until I really get it. That's why I love, a few months ago I talked about, Michael Beck was saying he had this sadness, and he did a lot of work on it, but it lasted for years and years until it finally dissipated. I'm like, finally, because sometimes when you speak only from the Spirit, it's like, and it's done now. But this journey that we're on, it's a long journey, and it isn't just done. If you're going depth, there's layers. We talk about the peeling of the onion. You might have solved it at one level, but keep peeling those layers, and there's more layers to go. And so I find what journaling does for me truly is about humility. Because there's no way I can hear Spirit if I come to those journaling sessions like I already have the answer. I already know. I'm better than because I already know. I've just cut myself off from Spirit. I've cut myself off from my heart. As Joni and Dave were singing and playing today, there's nothing more precious than intimacy of pure spirit. Nothing even comes close to that intimacy of knowing that you know that this presence of which we are turning our heart over and our soul to knows us better than we know ourselves, and there's nothing that I can't say, and it knows where it's guiding me that I can't even see, so I put my whole trust in this presence. For me, journaling is about this, the whole thing, but I'm talking about specifically right now, journaling is about putting my entire trust in this higher presence, whatever our name is. And that's what heals. That's the healing presence. I don't heal myself. The divine heals me. And it doesn't just heal my mind. It heals my heart. It heals my soul. It heals the depths of whatever's hiding out. It doesn't do it in the conceptually, but profoundly and deeply. If you're not crying sometimes when you're writing, if you're not feeling it, see if there's some place where you have a block. In the mystical traditions, they talk a lot, you know you're getting closer to God when those tears come more readily because your heart's so open, they just start flowing. And so that is a beautiful practice of finding your truth and speaking your truth, and it's ever evolving. We are ever, right? We are always becoming. We're infinite beings. So this is a process that you're speaking your truth. The relative truth is ever evolving and will be ever evolving your entire life. It doesn't, I have arrived. This is my truth. I've got a nice little book and I'm done. I mean, some of you have been on this journey for decades. But hopefully you're still growing. Hopefully you're getting to places where you're a little bit uncomfortable. The growth comes from the discomfort. If everything is basically okay, and things are basically okay in the people in your life, what's bringing you alive? What's that next growth area for you? Because that's when we're really learning. And I think that's what's happening in our community is growth. I remember, I just heard Simon Sinek say, I've been really enjoying his interviews with people or conversations with people, and he was saying what his view is that the whole purpose of any organization is to grow together, is an agreement to grow together. And if that's not what's happening now, I don't know what is, right? It's beautiful. But even as you're growing together and you're collectively finding your voice, you're individually hopefully finding more part of your voice that you've never seen before, because this is a whole new situation. You're finding and discovering new things in yourself. So journaling is another practice, meditation, exercise, and journaling. I want to shift a little bit back now to back to the beginning was the topic for the month and how this all came about. So in 1990, as I said, I surrendered my life because I'd already created the life that I wanted. I had a lot growing up already. So I was already starting from a standpoint of not having a lot of things I wanted. And then when I went after what I wanted, that didn't make it anything better. So I just said, well, I don't know. And I surrendered. And that was the opening to new thought. So that was a big decision. And that's what we often do. We'll really listen to spirit when it comes to a big decision. A new job, new relationship, something, do I need to move, whatever. Some big change, we'll spend a lot of time listening for the answer. But what happened to me 2 years later, like 1.5 years, 2 years later, was the awareness that I needed to have a more intimate relationship with God that wasn't just about asking about the big questions. That I needed a relationship that was a day-to-day listening, everything. How do I live my life every single day in that place of surrender? I surrendered, and I got these, and I received very clearly, do these 3 practices. This was my way of putting the divine first every day. That was to shift from just big decisions to everyday life, and that's when I got the meditation, got the journaling, and got the exercise. I did not get a mind practice because I already read all the time. That was just a way of life already, and these 3 practices were about becoming a way of life. So as many of you know, when we started the Lighthouse, these are the practices that sort of animated so much of what happened for me and what I talked about. In fact, neither Beth and I could remember. Before our board came together and created a purpose statement, but before we did that, there was a paragraph, this is the first 6 months of the center, about the importance of spiritual practice, because I really wanted a community that was based on spiritual practice. Because for me, you can talk about stuff all day long, but unless you're actually practicing it every day and committed, it's all theory. It's just like that's cool, or I'm just getting what I want. But to have a deep and profound, life-changing body, heart, mind, soul life in God requires a commitment to daily practice. And this became a little bit of a challenge. And it was a challenge I didn't know what to do about. So I was doing these spiritual practices, did them in the spiritual leadership. I did them in most classes. But after COVID, it sort of faded a little bit. I wasn't doing it quite as much. I didn't see a lot of passion for it, but there was the other challenge, which is we were also a CSL church. And in CSL, the foundation is the classes, and you do the classes. And I knew that wasn't my foundation. I was doing my practices before I even heard of CSL. I didn't even know it existed. I had a very rich spiritual life and a very rich life before, so I never made the connection that CSL was my foundation. I thought it gave, not until I'm going to get there in a minute, but CSL is amazing, and I'm so grateful for the gifts that I'll say it right now. Science of Mind changed my life because it gave me a model of freedom. You know, what Ernest Holmes did, even New Thought, even Unity has the same, very similar principles, but it was very connected with Christianity. What Ernest Holmes did feels like a miracle to me for that time of era, early 1900s, to say, what are these universal truth principles? And he pulled them away from the religious dogma. He pulled them away from the cultural dogma, and he said, what is actually true that isn't dependent on a religion or a culture? You can find them in all religions, and you can find them on the culture, but principles, like our value system, is not dependent on a culture. It's not dependent, they're truth. Truth is truth is truth. Truth is not dependent on any one religion, right? Isn't that just an incredible freedom? And for this extraordinary path I've been on, with all these, not me, all of us, but I'm just talking about when I found it, I'm like, here's principles. I could do everything that I want and still be in a community where we're all practicing the same thing because we're in universal truth principles. It's such a vehicle of freedom that I didn't, and I still don't know any organization that has that level of freedom and still be part of an organization. And so I'm just going to tell you, the challenges that I started having was actually, I became a house divided 3 times in 3 ways. So one way was the house divided, it was between Science of Mind and my spiritual practices. I love what Science of Mind has given me. It's given me a gift that I will carry with me for the rest of my life, that I am forever grateful, and I'm grateful I spent decades with Science of Mind and their principles, learning them, questioning them, dialoguing with them, but wow, has it given me a gift. But I didn't see it as a foundation for my spiritual life. It was a map, an integral, I think of as being in the same category as Science of Mind. Wilbur says the same thing. He was a synthesizer, and he could synthesize things. He had a lot of, in this world we have a lot more information than Ernest Holmes did. So they're doing the same thing, and I actually took Wilbur's maps, and I put them on our Science of Mind symbol, and that really brought the Science of Mind symbol alive. Anyone knows I love that symbol. I think it's the most dynamic, amazing, extraordinary thing. And reading books, and I put the Science of Mind symbol everywhere, because they're like, oh, wow. It's like you get all the connections. It's fantastic. I love it so much, but it's not my spiritual foundation. For me, the non-negotiable for me are my spiritual practices. That is the experience. I understand the principles because of the experience that I'm having every day by living my spiritual practices. So that became a little of a tension for me. Well, I shouldn't say became. It was pretty consistently throughout ministerial school, throughout my ministerial life, this constant tension that I had. And then, so I was when I started my own center, I can bring my spiritual practices here, and some people are digging it, some people not. Certainly the classes are the foundation of the organization. And I kept saying, everyone knows who has been in this community at any point since I started it, I'm not really Science of Mind, is what I'd always say. We might go independent, is what I used to say. And the reason why is because I never felt an integrity that was my foundation. It was a map. I love the map. I love the integral map, but it's not my heart. It's not my practices. So that became a tension, and as we know, that led to eventually this past year saying, I'm finally ready to have courage to step out. And it might seem simple to you, but it is a lot of courage. And the reason why for me, first of all, to always remember, I know it's hard I'm so blabbery here, my background was I was very shy and never spoke up. I was never in classes. I never said a word in classes. I never said a word. I very rarely ever talked, even in prac class. It wasn't until ministerial class that my first husband said, "You got to start talking, Harriet." And then he regretted that forever. But it's not always easy for me to step out there. And what Science of Mind has is a whole organization and lots of books and a lot of people and a lot of stuff. And I have no books, I have no organization, I have a lot of people. It's just me. And to say, well, I'm going to do my own thing and step out of that was like, I never had the courage to do that. And that's why I stayed with the tension. And then, so then I was stepping out, as we know, in this past year. And having the house of prayer be the foundation, and I started in January. Let's going on a treasure hunt. What does it mean to have a house of prayer as a foundation? And over this, as I've been really being with it, I've been already living this as a foundation. Meditation is prayer. Journaling is prayer. Exercise, it's all prayer. I've been living this as my foundation, and that's what I'm being called to do. I couldn't articulate it because I didn't fully get it. So then I thought, well, what about that? And that gets me to the 3 places where I've been divided. So I know I'm not saying anything that you all don't already know, that I haven't already said, but I don't think I've said how important it is to me. And I haven't said it because I feel embarrassed by it. And I don't want to be embarrassed by it, but I am. Jesus is my foundation. When I say spirit or God, that's the language that I know is for an open, universal teaching. But for me, it's always been Jesus. No, not always. I shouldn't say that. There was a period where I'm like, well, what if God's everything, what do I need Jesus for? And over time, that became revealed to me. That for me, I'm not saying for anybody, but for me, Jesus is my gateway to the infinite. It's like I was talking about Ram Dass and his connection with Maharshi, guiding him and the minutest details, that he became more and more intimate with Maharshi. Well, it's all God. We know Ram Dass teaches a million different paths, but it became more and more specific. And that's what started to happen, that I've been doing that it was Christ who gave me these 3 practices. It was Christ who led me to learn integral. It was Christ who's been leading me every step of the way. And it's the books that I read now, and it's going deeper and deeper. And what was happening in these last few years was this profound sadness that I couldn't share fully my heart for good reason. And that I thought, no matter even if we did do a house of prayer and this foundation and left CSL, it still wouldn't have worked. Because it's been time for me to go. And it's time for me to go because I have to follow my path, the love of my life, and I don't want to be hurting anyone else or restricting anyone else, because I too needed a place for decades that wasn't attached to any religion. And I'm not saying Christ attached to a religion, but certainly Jesus Christ is used in so many negative, horrible ways, and it's also limiting. It's this path versus that path. And I don't take it that way. That's never been my experience, but certainly people have been hurt by, limited by, told to be quiet, to not speak your voice. It's done so much damage that there's no way I'm going to be like, but get over yourself. I'm talking about Jesus. No, that's not okay. I loved going to Agape. I loved that a guy I was dating would take me to go see Guru Mai, and we chant, and I see all these Agape people there, and they're giving service there as well as at Agape, and the Buddhist monk who would close up his temple and come to Agape. There were so many people doing different things and coming to Agape that it was truly a world-centric community where there were no walls. I loved it. And there was no identity or connection with any particular path. It was just love, love, love. That's what I wanted. That's what my soul needed. And I think that's so important. And I think what Science of Mind has to teach is so important. And if you haven't been taking the classes, I encourage you to really learn these universal truth principles because they set us free. The world needs you. And I know that I have this calling that I have to go further. And the way Christ takes care of that. 2 days after I got so clear about that, I had no idea what I was going to do. I had no idea what it meant. I met Jürgen, and I can be a chaplain where I'm meeting people where they are, but I don't have to lead a community of anything because I can't lead a community of anything because I don't have an organization. I don't have books to teach. I'm not ready to do that. I'm still on my own journey right now, and this is the phase of my ministry. I've got many years left, but this is the phase that I'm on, which is finding my voice externally. I've lived it very much internally, but it always made me sad that most of the books that I read now, I never share here because they don't fit. And that's fine. But I think I finally said, my heart said, I can't do this anymore. I have to find what this looks like. And the reason why I wanted to share all of this is to say we all are exactly where we're supposed to be. I wasn't supposed to stay here. It's time for me to continue to grow and evolve on this particular facet of my spiritual journey. And it's time for this beautiful, radiant community to step more into these universal truth principles, because what I know is just even, maybe out in the world, but even in this Tri-Valley area, there are people who are hungering and thirsting for what we teach in CSL. What Centers for Spirit, these universal truth principles, they are so important. Not only that, you have this incredible gift coming up with all these ministers coming. Most people go to conferences and spend thousands of dollars to hear a lot of different speakers. You're going to have a lot of different people coming and speaking these principles. I've been to 2 centers when I started going. They didn't have a minister. They were in the search process, so they had a lot of different people coming. I loved it. I never thought, they need one minister. Have a great time with it. Enjoy it. You're going to hear so many different perspectives. It's going to be awesome. This team has done an amazing job putting this thing together. You're going to and then there's one other thing about speaking and finding your voice. The first center that I went to, they were in the middle of they didn't have a minister. They had a couple, Rita and Joel Noel McDinnis, started the National Science and Mind Center. They got divorced, they left, and it seemed like they'd been out of a minister for quite some time. Never even fazed me as a new person. Because when I came into that center, first of all, don't ever apologize that you don't have a minister. Because I wasn't thinking, well, where's their minister? They had a lot of cool people speaking. I was good. Thank you. I like this. Because it was new. And I started taking the classes. My first classes, there was no minister. There were practitioners teaching the classes. Loved them. I was full on board. And what I felt in the community, that it was strong. Like these people knew stuff that I wanted to know. That's what I remember. I can tell you the name of my practitioners that I had. They were saying things. I'm like, oh, that's really interesting. You have so much wisdom in this community. So much wisdom. And we need to hear it. People in this community need to hear it. It's a credible gift. And so this lighthouse is finding its voice in a whole new way, and it's magnificent. This is God ordained, all of it. We are all exactly where we need to be. Every one of us is on the right path, and I say that so there's no regret, there's no what if, there is no what if. This is the way it has to be I know for me, and if it has to be that way, it has to be for you, and it's extraordinary. You are finding your voice and speaking your truth as the Lighthouse community in a way that has never been spoken before. And glory, hallelujah for that. Yeah. So let's just keep celebrating. We're going to celebrate all week. Well, I'll be celebrating. I don't know how much celebration is going on at home, but we're got a lot of healing going on too, but we're going to bring that celebration next week and into the August. I know it's going to be absolutely magnificent. So thank you all for continuing to show up and saying, we are the Lighthouse, we are strong, we are mighty, and we are changing the world. Let's pray. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. for the power and the presence of pure spirit moving through and as this beautiful, radiant community called the Lighthouse Center for Spiritual Living. And we see all of those words with pride, with power, with grace. A lighthouse shining the light strong, an oasis for people to come and feel the power of the light, that beacon of light. The center, it is the center of the universe where there is no circumference. As St. Augustine used to say, we are each the center of the universe where there is no circumference. For spiritual living, we know that we are living that divine, transcendent spiritual life right here on earth. We are living spirit. We are the Lighthouse Center for Spiritual Living. Thank you for the existence of this community. Thank you for its voice that is finding itself in an entirely new way, that is magnificent, healing, creative, powerful, full and overflowing of joy and healing unlimitedly. For the beauty and the power and the presence of God as this community, for the great joy of this extraordinary journey of living God every day, healing all of us this day and for all eternity. We just live in gratitude. As our beautiful Christine said this morning, sometimes we don't have to ask for anything. We just give prayers of gratitude. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And so it is. Amen.
I walk in God in all I